Senator Masto, obviously we just started. Let's just start with Nevada. I know you're a longtime Nevada, born and raised here. This is your home state. You're a U.S. Senator. This has never happened before. Your reaction to what's happening?
That's right. There's no playbook for this. We are all experiencing this for the first time. And really that's why it requires all of us to work together in the state of Nevada. It is. It's devastating to our economy. We know we are a hospitality-based state and industry where most of the revenue, majority of the revenues are generated from. And the industry alone, there's over 400,000 jobs that come from our hospitality industry. So there is no doubt that it is a major impact on our state. That's why it's important for all of us to work together to really address the healthcare crisis, because this is where it's all starting, to make sure that we can stem the spread of the virus. We have enough testing. We have to ramp up the testing. We have to address the healthcare piece of it. We have to make sure all of our healthcare workers, our first responders, everybody on the front lines have the PPE and the support that they need. But we also have to be ensuring, and that's where we come in at the federal level as well, that those that are sheltering in place right now to help stop the spread of the virus, like our workers and our businesses now that are shut down, we have to make sure they have money in their pockets and the businesses have liquidity. And the reason why we need to do that is because when we can open our doors again, we want to make sure that, particularly in Nevada, that we spring back, our economy springs back that much quicker. And so that was the impetus behind all the legislation that you see passing here in Congress to address the healthcare piece, but at the same time to address the economic challenges that we are all facing right now.
Well, addressing the economic challenges, part of the CARES Act would put money in Southern Nevada's pockets. The governor shut our state down with an emergency order, which we had to do, and there's a stay-at-home order that went into place. Unfortunately, we have a broken unemployment system. We've been inundated at Channel 13 with people crying out for help. You've heard the same complaints.
Yeah, we've had similar. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to my office, whether it's emails, phones, and I think for many of us, including the governor, I think it's frustrating. It is a system that we have to essentially create this new pandemic unemployment insurance. Let's be clear that the money that I fought for, and our entire delegation, we were in this together to make sure that we put money into unemployment insurance. So money has gone out for some for the unemployment insurance, but we had to create a whole new one which we call the pandemic unemployment insurance. That's for all of the gig workers, the independent contractors, the seasonal workers that we have, particularly in Nevada. That's new to get them the resources we need. And I know that the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation in the state is having to stand that up. My understanding, and I'm on the phone regularly, believe me, with the governor and the director, finding out what they need from me at a federal level, that we can tear down those barriers and what else we can do to help them stand it up that much quicker. I know the governor just issued his executive order, right, so that they can hire more workers. There was a federal mandate that required any workers that worked in unemployment insurance to be merit-based workers that had the special skills to do the adjustments and adjudication. And so with the governor's executive order, that allows us to have that waiver at the federal level. So now they can go out and they can hire the workers they need. They've done the hotline now, and they have a vendor I know that is working very quickly on setting up the program that's necessary. My understanding is they are working 24/7. They're looking to get it up as quickly as possible. Let me just say this. Because I've heard from so many people, and rightfully so, because there are many people who are going without for the last 6 or 7 weeks. And if you're still struggling, please reach out to my office. Let us know how we can help you. There are other ways that we can get relief for you until you can get this pandemic unemployment insurance. And I know the governor's going to make it retroactive. But in the meantime, if there's help out there, let us figure out what we can do to help you.
You know what, Senator, that's very needed. And I'm glad you're saying that to our audience, because there are people who are literally desperate. They have never been in food lines. Now they're in food lines. I mean, they're calling Las Vegas ground zero.
Yeah, and I hear it. I hear it all the time. I hear it from families, right, who have been laid off and now, rightfully so, are concerned. They have young children and they're trying to figure out what they can do for the relief. You know, we did rebate checks, and that helped. Many received that one-time check of $1,200 and then $500 for individual children, but that only goes so far.
Right.
And so we have to make sure we're doing more. And that's why we're looking at the next relief package. We're really looking at how we maybe do a better job of getting money directly to individuals who are in need right now. And that's the negotiation that's happening right now. I know many of my colleagues were looking at different systems, way that we can ensure that money gets directly to individuals.
You know, that's the other issue. I heard an interview with Governor Cuomo in New York, and he was talking about, and we have this issue here. Obviously, we have a budget shortfall with CCSD. The governor has talked about his budget shortfall. Clark County Commission Chairwoman Marilyn Kirkpatrick, I interviewed, budget shortfall there. We have issues. Does the federal government need to step in and help these local governments?
Yes, I believe they do. And that's why I supported the initial tranche of money that we set aside in the CARES Act to go to state and local government. And we need to do more. But we also need to make it flexible so that they can use it to really address the lost revenue that they are seeing, but also so it supports those workers who are on the front line. You know this, the
Right.
police officers, the firefighters, the first responders, the transit drivers. So many people are working right now. They're essential workers. Well, they all work for local government and state. So we have to make sure they have the resources they need. And that's, again, I supported the initial tranche of about $150 billion that went to the states in the CARES Act. And now this next piece of legislation, I'm looking for more money to go into state and local government. And let me just say this, part of this for me is also because I've been on the calls with our local governments, both urban and rural. I've talked to Commissioner Kirkpatrick. I've talked to mayors. I can't tell you how many times I've talked with our legislators and with the governor. We have to make sure that the money gets to really some of those smaller local governments in our urban areas, but most importantly in our rural areas as well. They didn't see some of this money because of the formula that was initially in the CARES Act, and it didn't get to them directly. So I am looking to see how we can tweak the formula so we can make sure those local governments can access this money directly.
And I know you've probably heard the news or you saw the interview that Mayor Goodman did with Anderson Cooper. A lot of people have had an opinion about that, reopening Las Vegas, because I understand what the message she was trying to say. However, health and safety for most people really comes first, and opening too soon, obviously, based on what Dr. Fauci is saying, could be very damaging, and we may have to close later. So it's a very tough situation, obviously, here. What is your opinion about the opening in phases? And there's been also talk about Las Vegas possibly needing its own stimulus package because we are so unique here and not well diversified.
No, so thank you for the question, because I think this is so important. We have to get it right. And I think for purposes of the state, we have to figure out what makes sense for us. And I support what the governor is doing, because I think there is a phased-in approach, but you have to balance what the healthcare worker or healthcare experts are saying, right? And the scientists about how we go about opening this so we don't continue to spread this virus. But at the same time, we also need to listen to some of the businesses, large and small. There may be the ability to do it in phases and open them up, and at the same time with our priority of keeping our workers safe, and as well as customers and all of those visitors we want to come back to our wonderful state. Remember, if visitors don't feel safe coming back to Nevada, they're not going to come. And
Right.
so we have to make sure we get this right. I think there is a balanced approach. I support what the governor is doing. He is now listening to everyone. He has reached out to our local governments, both urban and rural. He's talking with the private sector. He's talking with the businesses. And we've even seen some of our strip properties have come up with some great ideas about how we can do this in a smart way. So I think there's some really good ideas out there, and we just need to listen to everybody. But we cannot neglect the healthcare piece of this. We have to make sure we're bringing in the doctors and the experts as well.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, Elon Musk was very outspoken, saying that he was so annoyed with what was happening in California in terms of restrictions and opening up. He said that he would think about bringing Tesla, his manufacturing plant for the cars, to Nevada or possibly Texas. Would you reach out to Elon Musk right now it feels like he's in a situation where he would consider moving. That's something we could use in Nevada.
Well, I'm going to reach out to anyone who wants to come to Nevada because I'm biased. It's the best place. It is the best place to live, and we want all the businesses to come to the state of Nevada. It's really a business-friendly environment. I think growing up there, I'm third generation, it is a fantastic place, northern Nevada, southern Nevada. And so I am always open to reaching out to businesses and inviting them to Nevada to open shop and contribute to our economy and really have a great opportunity for a life for their workers.
I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about, and I'm sure you've heard, and I'm sure you've been approached, obviously. I've watched your rise in the political world. I remember when you were our Attorney General, a no-nonsense, tough Attorney General here in Nevada. And now there's been talk that you could possibly be a contender for the vice presidency. Have you heard about that, and what's your reaction to that?
Well, of course, I've heard about it. And it's I'm humbled and honored by it. I also think it's pretty incredible to be a part of a real high caliber of women who are being recognized as not only VP potentials, but that were running for president. I mean, these are women that in their own right are inspiring and they have done an incredible job to make sure that other young girls see there's an opportunity and they can succeed as well. And so it's exciting to know that there are so many women that can do the job and in this day and age. And so, yes, I'm very, very humbled by that. I will say this, part of what I do and why I do it here in the state is I am privileged every day to represent the state of Nevada. And there's so much that needs to be done right now in the middle of this pandemic, and which what we've been talking about. We are so hard hit, and so we need everybody working together. This is my first priority. This is important, and I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm not going to step away from it. To me, this is where everybody should be focused on how we address this and how we make sure everybody's safe, but at the same time, turn our economy around for the future. It's not just short-term impact. There's long-term impacts we're going to have.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of just your political career overall, where you see yourself, do you have, I mean, obviously you're a US Senator now, but do you see a bigger picture for yourself?
You know, I can only tell you right now that this is where I know I'm supposed to be in my focus. And again, to me, it's so important. And I feel privileged every day to walk into my office or on the floor of the United States Senate, not just representing Nevada, but representing all of the people who are out there that I know that supported me here, that now I can be their voice. You know, it's one thing to make history. It's another to now have a voice at the table to represent so many who were underrepresented, but at the same time, let them know that, oh my gosh, if I can do that, you can do this too. So I'm opening the door for more young women in particular to walk through that door. And I think that's a responsibility we all have. I'm a big proponent of mentorship. And, you know, I will never forget, and I talk about this all the time, but this happens to me so often. But when I was on the campaign trail, I had a young girl, she was in 5th grade, and she found out that from her mother that I was running and I would be the first Latina and the first woman from Nevada to be represented in the United States Senate. And so she wrote me, was excited when she learned about that. But then she said, I'm running for 5th grade government, and do you have any tips on how I can win? And so I love the letter so much, so I called her up and called her mother, and I said, come meet with me, let's sit down and talk. And she did. And I will never forget that, because the most important thing for me is for young girls like that to not only have the ability to see that there's potential for them, but when they meet me, they know, well, oh my gosh, if she can do it, I can do it too. Right? I mean, that's what I want them to take away. And that's why this is so important. It just, there's so much opportunity to open the door so much wider and allow more to participate. And that's what it's about for me. So I'm excited. I love what I do. I'm privileged every day that the voters of Nevada send me to the United States Senate.
But you would serve your party by the same token if you were needed for the vice presidential seat, correct?
Well, I will absolutely talk with individuals and consider the concerns that they might have. But I will tell you this, right now, For purposes of moving forward, I think it is up to Joe Biden to decide who's going to be his running mate. And that's a decision for him to make. And he's going through a thorough vetting process. At the end of the day, any discussion around that should be his to make. And I would never want to take that away from him. I am just excited to be a part of the caliber of women that are being, their names are being talked about, because I respect them. They are phenomenal. They are inspirational. They are on their own right trailblazers, and I think that's exciting for the country.
I have one last question. The Latino community, the Southern Nevada Health District just mentioned yesterday, that is the hardest hit community now here with COVID-19. And have you heard from any members of our Latino community in needing help with that at the federal level?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Yes, I am aware of that, because as soon as I heard anecdotally that there was harder hit communities across the country, and there are minority communities, I got on the phone with our state folks to figure out what's going on, because we didn't see the data. So I was on the phone with Richard Whitley, who's the director of our state health and human services department, to understand the data, what it was telling us, and demographically who was hardest hit. And he was telling me the same thing. But then the next conversation we had, and rightfully so, was, okay, what are you doing about it? And so I know the state has already identified that the Hispanic community, Latino community in Southern Nevada in particular is hardest hit. So they've already prioritized and put resources into that community. In addition to that, I've made sure that I am reaching out through my office and individually. I've been on Facebook Live with so many people within our Latino community to make sure that they know that there's healthcare available for them, that they should get it if they need it, that there are resources available, and that they can always reach out to my office, both online or over the phone, to get the resources that they need. We have an online resource guide that anybody can go to if they have questions about how they can seek relief in the state of Nevada during this pandemic. It's in English and Spanish. And so they can call the office, they can go online, but my goal is to making sure everybody in our community has the relief they need right now.
So it's an online relief portal that you have there on your website.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, and then the last question I had for you, hold on, let me just check my list, make sure. I had a couple questions written down here. I think I got through everything that I wanted to. I wanted to mention, Ryan had mentioned the legislation in terms of mental health with veterans as well. And you've yourself authored bills. So you want to maybe talk about that and enlighten us in terms of that?
Absolutely. A couple of things. Well, we just did a press conference this week. I participated in a press conference because we pushed out here, the Senate Democrats, a report that shows that particularly during this pandemic, there's more stressors on the family and more mental health issues that we're seeing, and rightfully so. So we need to put resources behind the mental health and well-being and substance abuse and treatment that's necessary in our communities now. Nevada has 3 certified behavioral health clinics. That's one of few states that has that many. And I want to make sure not only those clinics have the resources they need, but additionally across the state, all of our professionals have the resources they need to provide the mental health, wellness and well-being, and the substance abuse treatment. Along with that, I have legislation that has focused on the mental health and well-being of our first responders. In particular, I have the COPS Act and the Data Suicide Collection Act for our first responders, particularly our police officers, because I've had numerous conversations with our police chiefs and sheriffs across the state seeing a higher suicide rate and trying to understand what's going on. Today, those 2 bills just went through and passed out of the Senate. We hotlined them, we call it. But we passed them out of the Senate today, and now they will go to the House. But this is part of a package that I have to focus on putting more funding into behavioral health services, particularly in the state of Nevada. We have cut those services, and we need to make sure we're providing resources and doing more for individuals and families now in this space.
So funding in behavioral health, and that's for first responders and veterans as well, correct?
So there's first responders, there's veterans. We are looking at other firefighters, but we're also in general, that's our first responders, but we're in general looking at how we put more money into our certified behavioral health clinics. Nevada, like I said, has 3, one in Fallon, one in Las Vegas, and one in Elko. We need to make sure they're funded, and we actually have more opportunities for individuals within their own communities to access the resources they need. So we're going to put more funding in that space, and that's going to come up in the next package. The House put about $3 billion just into this more funding in behavioral health in this most recent package. I'm working with my colleagues on the Senate side to make sure we continue to put that amount of money or money into behavioral health in this next package.
So the one that passed in the Senate that needs to go to the House now, that specifically has to do with the first responders then?
That's correct. So it's the COPS Act,
It's
and the Data Suicide Collection Act, and that has to do with law enforcement specifically. And that just passed out today. We hotlined it, and I just got word before I got on the call with you that passed today. And now it's got to go to the House, and I can make sure that staff follows up with you and they get you the specific information.
That would be great. This interview will air at 5 and 6 o'clock tonight. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of what's happening? You know, my concern is, I've lived through the recession here. I moved here in 2001. My concern is the housing market too. It took us literally a decade to recover from the downturn. I mean, this could be, if we don't get help, this could be a long road.
Absolutely, and that's my concern. And so as I sit on Banking and Housing Senate committee, this has always been my concern in the state of Nevada, not enough affordable housing as it is, and now you have this pandemic hit. So I have been looking at how we put additional funds and resources and programs into the state. So we did it as part of the CARES Act. So there has been housing funding, and I was just looking at that today, and I will tell you, because I haven't shared all of this breakdown with everyone, but I can tell you in the housing area, because of the CARES Act and some of the bills that we have passed just recently, $27 million has come into the state of Nevada just within the last month to focus on housing. Now, my goal is moving forward into the next piece of legislation that we put more funding into housing and housing needs in our state. And so we're looking at that right now.